There are risks and costs to action, but they are far less than the long-range risks of comfortable inaction.
This is SPRH Podcast, where business experts help you to take massive action. With your hosts, corporate and keynote speakers Matt Ward and Dan Candell. Change your business, change your life, and start now.
Welcome to the SPRH Podcast. I'm Dan Candell here with Matt Ward and our special guest today. And hey, we all know the value of we should be there for our customers and our clients. And a big part of it is answering the phone for people. If people's calls go unheard, they feel unheard. So we want to make sure that we put our all into making sure our customers and our prospects get heard and their calls get answered. And we have a great guest today who's going to be sharing with us some insight and some secrets about this and assistance that can actually help you with this and the value and the reason, the purpose for this. So let's get into it today. Let's take massive action with Moises Hasbun. Welcome, Moises.
Thank you for having me, Dan. Thank you for having me, Matt. I'm actually very excited about this. I'm a big fan of the podcast, and I decided to follow, I believe it was Matt recently on Twitter, and he invited me to be on, and I took the first interview slot possible, and we're here now.
There you go. Well, thanks for jumping on, and I appreciate the engagement online. And as you know, we help small business owners take massive action. Can you share with our listening audience what massive action you have taken and what the results of that massive action were?
Absolutely. Well, I'm fairly young, but for me, I'd like to say that my massive action was just jumping into starting a new business. I really didn't know much about it, so I spent a couple months researching on it. I knew I wanted to do this because I'm all about connections. I'm all about providing solutions to things where I feel that they're lacking. And sometimes you try to contact somebody that you found on Facebook or any listing, and they don't pick up. And you just go to the next one on the list. So I'm like, well, this person just missed out on my business. How could I help this person not miss out on my business? And so that's kind of where the idea of having an answering service, virtual answering service, came into place.
Awesome. So your massive action was grabbing this concept. And how did you develop this concept or this idea? And where did you see the need for this?
I saw it because whenever you're a small business, sometimes the quality of your product can be just as good as anybody else's. But there's just a certain array of moving pieces around your product that small businesses don't really take care about. And part of that is customer service or being able to respond immediately to somebody. Like right now, we have an event coming up this weekend with my family, and we're looking for musicians. And just trying to contact this person that provides music for these type of events has been pretty tedious. And I thought about, if this person had an answering service, then I'd feel at ease. But right now, I'm already looking at my phone thinking, I'll call her again in 2 hours, see if she's available now. And if she doesn't pick up, I'll just go with the next one. So that's something very important. Forbes reports that between 70 and 80% of the people will not leave a voicemail. So if you're a small business owner or a professional that is banking on somebody leaving a voicemail to acquire business, it's very likely that you're missing out on 70 or 80% of your callers.
Yeah, there's been a lot of times where actually I used to have the idea of I'm going to let people leave a voicemail and I'll call them back. And very rarely people would not leave voicemails. And I'm constantly in session working with people privately. And so when my phone is ringing, I can't answer it because I'm working with people privately all day long, or I'm on stage doing a show, or I'm on a plane traveling. So it's important to have, like I said in the intro, to have these calls go answered to make sure that your customers feel heard. Now,
absolutely.
Do you see that? Is there a special way that people should answer, or some way that you've seen effective for people to respond?
Absolutely. Phone etiquette is something that we practice with our agents a lot. Just smiling while you're taking the call really goes a long way in how your tone is portrayed to the caller. And for me, we try to find, disc personalities for the people, for the different agents that we have. And we group them on the different industries that we work with. And we pair them up with the industry that works best for them. And it's fairly interesting because when we started, I could see like some of the agents that would say like, oh my God, I struggle so much with beauty spas and salons, but I love taking calls for lawyers. And that's kind of like where I started thinking maybe I should start grouping them differently. Maybe I should start, staffing people based on their competencies and whatnot. And it's just not about phone etiquette. The person that's calling to get a relaxing spa treatment over the weekend is definitely different than the person that's calling because, they have to get some take some legal action on somebody or something like that.
Exactly.
So that's what you did. Is that standard in your industry, or are you sort of like a pioneer in that, and you're just looking at it from a different lens, so to speak?
Well, I've done a bit of benchmarking, and I can tell you that sometimes there's companies that say like, yeah, we'll put you in a call group. I'm not sure. Nobody has really advertised that, hey, the people that are calling, you'll get put in the lawyers group. I know that there's other companies just like ourselves that, we train our operators on different things that are specific to an industry. So maybe like the common person that could apply for a job here doesn't know some terms that are related to legal or real estate. But, if they're going to be answering calls for realtors, then, we teach them a little bit about real estate. We teach them, what a lien is. And I know a lot of people may think like, who doesn't know what a lien is? But you'd be surprised about going on the specifics of it, and that really goes above and beyond in providing a very good answering service to the industry that we would be targeting.
And that's really comforting because when people hear call center, I think it's gotten a really bad connotation because they usually think, oh, this is going to be outsourced to another country and people aren't going to respect my customers, and it causes a lot of fear. And it's almost like calling tech support where you're getting transferred over to somebody else who doesn't understand what you're talking about, and they don't care about your problem. You're just a number to them. And
absolutely.
So I think this is a really awesome concept where you are teaching and training people how to develop a personal connection with customers, as if the people who are answering the calls were the business owners themselves, and you're
absolutely
training them that. Now, what happens if you get a completely different industry and you're like, wow, like for me, I'm a hypnotist. And
okay.
So what would happen if, for example, I joined this service and you're like, well, we've never had a hypnotist before, or we've never had a magician before, let's say. How would you go about researching, or would you research, or would you talk to the person first and say like this, what are you looking for? How do you go about training people or getting information to knowing what their needs will be?
Absolutely. So, I mean, we would talk to you. We would ask you, like, we definitely don't have, I got to be honest, we don't have a group of operators answering calls for magicians or hypnotists, but we would likely ask you, like, what kind of person are you looking for? Are you looking for people that are assertive, or are you looking more of a sympathetic kind of operator? Do you think that is more in line to this line of business or this other line of business, and what would you prefer? Now, the people that might be calling you, they might be distressed, so it's very likely that they want somebody that's comforting and assertive, and so we might want to go with kind of like the lawyer side of things. But again, like, we always have a 2-week free trial, and even before the 2-week free trial, we recommend you calling in and just talking to different operators so that you feel comfortable with them. And just before we keep going on this topic, I just wanted to go back to what you were saying about the connotation of call centers. And with answering services is actually very interesting. Answering services is an industry that's been in the US for over 25 years. We survived voicemails, we survived beepers, we survived cell phones. Yeah. And everybody said, oh, the voicemail machine is here. This is going to be over for you guys. Or the beeper is here. This is going to be over for you guys. But at the end of the day, people that are calling a business, they want to feel like they're in good hands, and a machine just doesn't cut it right now. And the next big thing for us is AI. And what I ask my clients or potential clients is to ask themselves, like, next time you call a business and you get outsourced to a big call center, or next time you call a business and you get an AI phone do you feel like you've been well taken care of? Do you feel like you can trust this machine? And the majority of the times the answer is no, and that's why they come to businesses like ours. And the main difference between an answering service and a call center is that for us, calls are just not calls. So we never look at the same metrics like, oh, we had customer satisfaction rating of whatever percent. It's either 100% or it's not good enough, because we are answering calls for a lot of clients. If I have a client that's taking in 3 calls per day, but we're answering hundreds of calls per day, we may mess up in if we mess up in one call, that would be, like a customer satisfaction rating of 95%, 99%, and that's good. But for that particular client, if it was one of his 3 calls for the day, that's a 33% on his calls. So that's the big part for us. That's very important for us, and that's why we are very careful about how we staff, and the usage of an answering service operator is much different than a call center operator. We're not back to back here. This is more of an administrative role. This is more of a if the call dropped, we don't say like, oops, it dropped. We go back and try to call that person and say, I'm sorry, the call dropped. How can I help you? We're in the middle of doing something.
So that brings up, and maybe your last answer may answer this question. I'm not really sure, but what is most frustrating to me is when I call into a business and the people I talk to are clearly reading a script.
Okay.
They cannot put the script down and have a conversation with me as a person. And that's very frustrating, because I know from talking to a lot of people that everybody else feels that their problem is unique. And I know in talking to them that their problem is the same. So, for instance, word of mouth referrals. You can't get them. You don't know how to get them on a consistent basis. You're asking for them and they don't work. However you phrase your questions, they generally come back to those 3 or 4 questions summarized. But when I'm answering people's questions, I have to listen to what they're saying and then answer them directly so that they feel their questions being answered. I recently called into a place, and perhaps it's a call center and that's why it works this way, but I just felt like you weren't even answering my question. You don't even understand what I'm asking you.
Absolutely.
So they try and repeat it back, but oftentimes I see that repeat functionality, the fact that they're repeating something, they'll repeat it back when it doesn't even need to be repeated back.
Yeah.
And so that becomes annoying too. How do you get your team members who are working with your clients to act like they're part of your client's business versus being some extension arm with a script that they're reading from?
Okay. So what you're experiencing is, what some call centers do, we don't do this, which is basically kind of like a trial and error and trying to figure out what's wrong with you. So, you'll ask a question and then the person will go to a frequently asked questions sheet in real time, and then they'll be blurting out answers for you until one of them hits the nail. And that's not good. That's not good, because it's exactly the experience that you had. To be totally honest, one operator can be, handling hundreds of accounts. So we tell our clients that we will never answer the questions as good as they do, because of course they're the account owners, they're the business owners. But what we act as is a buffer, so that the person that called in, they're content enough to wait for an actual good answer. There are certain answers that we can definitely help with. Somebody calls in and for a lawyer, and they say, hey, do you do probate? And we can say, yes, we do that. Or do you handle wills? We can say, yes, we do that. But there's more of special trades. Like, for example, we had a pet groomer not so long ago. And at first things were kind of choppy with her, because she gave us this complex chart on Excel on how to price, how the grooming would work. And then I remember we had one issue in which she had to go in and groom a long-haired poodle, and we had thought it was a short-haired poodle or something. Oh. Yeah, so it
quote.
Yeah, something exactly. So she was angry about this wrong quote, and I told her, listen, it's going to be very hard for our operators to really know all the dog breeds. We can't really go that far, and I apologize for that. But what I can tell you is that whenever somebody calls in, we can tell them, hey, so-and-so will be contacting you back with a quote shortly. I'm going to try to take as many details as you can. And that immediately ties in the client, because whoever was calling, they said oh, I'm already being taken care of. Somebody was calling me in 15, 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, and they're going to give me a quote, and that's going to help me out.
Well, that and Moises, I think you bring up a factor for small business owners as well, that if your business is complicated, a lot of things are going to be hard.
Exactly.
Consumers in general, if the call center, if the answering service person can't answer the questions, I mean, how do you expect the consumer to understand the matrix? And maybe you might say, well, my consumer doesn't get the matrix. My consumer gets the price. But the problem is a lot of mistakes can be made, and it's not simple. There's something to be said for simplification in business. And I think that would go to say, okay, if this dog groomer, came back and they said, okay, how much does your dog weigh? And you went by weight, right? And then you went by length of hair. You could say, okay, this is a very simple, complex chart. Here's your price. It's $50.
Yeah.
And in the quote, it says, if we find that the weight is different or the length hair is different, then the price will be different. And that's the quote you're providing via email. It can provide you some assurances, but it also can. I think, too, that a lot of times, Moises, small business owners try and short-circuit the system. They say,
Exactly.
Oh, I want to hire a salesperson because I don't want to do sales. But in fact, if you don't know how to do sales, then nobody else will know how to do sales.
Exactly.
So at what point do you think it makes sense for a small business to bring on an answering service? What do you tend to hear as the pain points around why they're coming to your company?
Well, I'm glad that we arrived at this question, because I know that at the beginning I was talking about how we go farther than a call center and we try to build a relationship with the caller instead of just following a script. But at the same time, just now I was just telling you that there are certain scripts that we can't follow, right? And the thing is, we act similar to a website. How many times have you been on a business website and you've thought to yourself, I have no idea what they're doing or how they're doing it, because it's a complicated product. In some cases, it's pretty easy. You can go to a lawyer's website and you can say, oh, okay, this lawyer does probate, or this lawyer does immigration help. Or you can go to the realtor's website and you can say, oh, this realtor does selling, But if it's something a little bit more complicated than that, then the best salesperson for your product is yourself. In that case, what we're that happy medium between taking in customers, providing great customer service, making sure that they feel connected to the business whenever they're putting in a request or an order or trying to schedule a consultation, because we can schedule consultations. But at the same time, we reassure them that the best person that's going to be taking care of them is the owner of the business, is the face of the business, and that person is currently busy at the moment, but they trust a human to let them know about their concerns better than a machine. If you're trying to look for a lawyer or a realtor because you want to buy a house in New York, you're probably going to call somebody, and if you get a answering machine, you're going to think oh my God, just trying to describe exactly what I'm looking for is not going to work. But if you talk to one of our operators, our operators may have never been to New York, but they can definitely take down certain information that will go further than a typical voicemail. You want something with 2 bathrooms, or you have a family, so you're looking for some sort of family room, or you're into cooking, so the kitchen has to be a very important part of the house. And all that just brings you one step closer to closing a sale. And that's the important part. That's why we're in business.
And people appreciate that personal touch, because I can't tell you how many people really love the fact that when they call my office, someone answers, regardless if it's not me or my receptionist or assistant. And even if they have questions, the customer's questions, and they say, well, Dan's in session right now. It sets a precedence, but he will get back to you. What's a good time later today after 3 o'clock that he can get back to you? He prefers to answer those questions himself just to respect confidentiality, for example.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I want to know what would prompt you as a small business owner to actually hire an answering service? Because Dan, you've done that.
Yes.
So from your perspective, why is that? And then from Moises' perspective, what does he hear from his customers?
So for me specifically, I was losing out on a lot of business because I am in session from 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. and I only have an hour lunch break at noon. So I was not able to get back to people, and it was costing me thousands of dollars to not have an answering service because I couldn't return calls sometimes for 2 or 3 weeks. And by that time, they forget who you are. they've moved on to somebody else, or they no longer require your services. So it was costing me much more money to not have an answering service or someone at least returning the calls. It was costing me much more money because I couldn't get back to people myself. And there was a huge frustration there. And it said, I can't do this. I need help. And
absolutely.
And that's, Moises, I didn't know really about call centers, so I hired a virtual assistant. I bought her own cell phone, which cost me an extra $100+ a month. Then I was paying her about $20 an hour, and it just cost me so much more money to myself hire a virtual assistant, buy them their own phone. And with a service such as the one that you're providing, you don't have to do any of that. You don't have to pay for an extra phone bill. You don't have to buy an extra smartphone. And you don't know, and I trust my assistants, but if you didn't, you don't have people who are going to be texting and using the phone for videos and sending nasty pictures back and forth and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So all these risks that are involved in hiring it yourself, you've already screened, and that's why that would be my reason, my purpose for moving over to a service like yours.
Absolutely. And just to add to that, like a lot of the times people may say, oh, I have a virtual assistant, or I have an in-house assistant, or my mother takes my phone calls, because we've seen that. I mean, like my mother is at home, she's not working anymore, so she'll take my phone calls if nobody's there. But how many times have you called a small business and then you hear like a dog barking in the background, or like a little baby, or maybe the person that's answering the phone is in the bathroom or on her lunch break or whatever. We answer calls from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. And what we can assure you is that we'll always have somebody on the phone, right? So you get all that coverage that typically you wouldn't get before. Mm-hmm. And what we do, we definitely satisfy the needs of somebody like Dan. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, because we have people that hire us because they're getting too many calls and they need to screen potential candidates, or they need to screen calls because they're getting a lot of spam calls, spam calls. So we help them with that. A lot of the times we just ask potential clients some questions to make sure that they're genuinely interested in the product. I'm pretty sure that, Dan being a hypnotist, he probably takes in clients who really respect the trade and want to get into it. And then probably there's some other clients that are just kind of like shopping around for information or trying to figure out what's going on, and they're not really interested in buying. And developing some sort of a script or rapport that our operators can work on can go a long way to make Dan's time more efficient. Mm-hmm. And allow him to get back to a lot of his callers better, So that's the main idea here, is that we can help small business owners, first of all, sound more professional, have a better control of their time, provide much better quality of customer service, and finally close out on more leads and potential customers that are calling in, right?
And the thing is, I asked Matt before you got on the call, I said, well, this guy owns a call center. I said, I went on his website. I really like it. I'm actually thinking about signing up for it myself. He said, but is this going to be a whole sales pitch? And Matt said, no. I asked the guy to be on. I found him. And you know what? I kind of wish, almost, Moises, that it was more of a sales pitch, because I really do think that business owners need this.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So now that we're at that point, what's the name of your company? Where can people find out more information about this so they can take advantage of this themselves?
Absolutely. Well, we are Easybee Answering Services. Easybee as in EASYBEE. Like the word easy and the word bee as the insect. And you can go on our website, easybeereceptionist.com. And we have an alternate domain as well, which is easybee.buzz. B as in Brian, Z as in zebra, double Z at the end. And, you can always give us a call at 305-447-7022. That is 305-447-7022. One of our lovely operators are going to answer the phone for you. And then you can just ask for yourself if, this is going to work for you or not. And you can always ask for me, and I'll treat you like family.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. You really did provide a lot of value here, and I think this is something that a lot of business owners need, and maybe they're asking themselves, why do I need this? Hopefully now they know. So thank you so much for sharing your message with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Dan and Matt, for having me. It's been great, and I can't wait, to hear back from you guys. I really love being a guest on this show.
And that's a wrap. Hey, Matt, what's your Yahoo moment?
Dan, my Yahoo moment today with Moises was 70% of people that call your business won't leave a voicemail. I had never heard that before. That's shocking to me. I do know in the agency business, we were told that 65% of our clients were coming to us because they can't get hold of their current web guy. Mm-hmm. So I know that that's an issue. And I also know that oftentimes in the speaking business, the first to respond often gets the gig,
right?
Because others wait too long. But I never knew that 70% won't leave a voicemail. And I think when you look back, you start to understand the concepts. Like, I'm interested now in the product. I'm not interested in leaving voicemails and waiting. So I get it. That was my big Yahoo moment today.
Yeah, that's the thing. That was definitely a big surprise to me as well. And also kind of a pain point that says, hey, we need to be more proactive in answering the calls. And part of it is having a personal touch. And that's my Yahoo moment, is make sure if you do have someone answering your calls, make sure you train them and communicate with them to have that personal touch. And it's very, very important that you have somebody that you would want to talk to and represent your business. So training and education and communication is a really big part.
You just listened to the SPRH podcast with Matt Ward and Dan Candell, where you learn from the pros how to take massive action. Remember, have yourself an action-oriented day.